Hi, you guys. Welcome to my channel, Spiritual Justice Gym. I'm Goddess Quita. You could call me Quita. Either one would do. I answer to both. Today we're going to be talking about the crown of Jesus. But I'm going to go a little. I'm sorry, the crown of thorns. It's not called the crown of Jesus, but we all know Jesus wore the crown. They put the crown of thorns on Jesus. Let's put it. Let's just get it right. Let me get it right. John 19. I'm just gonna read because I really want to point out a couple of things that that the Most High showed me. Then Pilate took Jesus and had him flogged. The soldiers. Let me see what Bible I'm reading from. I'm reading from this NIV Bible by Zondervan. Then Pilate took Jesus and had him flogged. The soldiers. Note it says soldiers. These wasn't common folks. These wasn't everyday people. This particular verse, in verse 2, is talking about the soldiers. The soldiers was the one that twisted together a crown of thorns and put it on the head of Jesus. The reason why I want to point this out because, in my mind, what I was thinking that it was some kind of ritual or some kind of spell, but this wasn't really thought out. This was really like, you know how they haze you in college and stuff like that, and they have no regard for how, if you die or something like that. This is what this is reminding me of. The soldiers twisted together a crown of thorns and put it on his head. They clothed him with a purple robe and went up to him again and again, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews," and they slapped him in his face. Again, that sounds like a hazing, like something that somebody would do in college, like kids would do. But you got to understand, this is not even kids that's doing this. These are officials. They said that they were soldiers. So these are official people that's doing this. It's not common everyday people. These are soldiers. It's not even the police. These are soldiers that's doing this to Jesus. Once Pilate came out and said to the Jews gathered there, Look, I am bringing him out to you to let you know that I have no basis for a charge against him." So let's be clear. Jesus had no charges against him. There was nothing they found that they had charged him for. He had done nothing.
Mom, that's funny.
When Jesus came out wearing the crown of thorns and put the purple robe, when Jesus came out wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe, Pilate said to them, "Here is the man." So he hadn't done nothing, but yet they had took their time out to craft the crown of thorns. And not only that, they mocked him by saying, "Here, hail, King of the Jews." You know what I'm saying? As soon as the chief priests and their officials saw him, they shouted, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" So it was the people in the church that was yelling, "Crucify Jesus! Crucify!" It says, as soon as the chief priest, the head of the church, like the Vatican, the Pope, the chief priest, and it wasn't one. It said priest. It's plural. It has an S at the end. It was more than one. And their officials saw him. They shouted, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" Really? But Pilate answered, "You take him and crucify him. As for me, I find no basis for a charge against him." Pilate said, "I don't even have a charge against him. That he didn't do anything. You saying crucify this man when he ain't got no charges. He was innocent." So the Jewish leaders insisted, "We have a law, and according to the law, he must die because he claimed to be the Son of God." So they killed, at this point they hadn't killed him yet. They crucified and was mocking Jesus and gave him a crown of thorns just because he claimed to be the Son of God. Nothing else. Nothing else. He didn't do anything else. He didn't harm nobody. He didn't rob no store. He didn't do anything. He didn't rape nobody. He wasn't killing people. He wasn't doing nothing. He just claimed to be the Son of God. And they wanted to crucify him. They said they had a law against that. They had a law against people saying that they was the Son of God. When Pilate heard this, he was even more afraid, and he went back inside the palace. "Where do you come from?" he asked Jesus. It's like they created this law. They said that they had a law, but they had no bias to what he had done nothing but claim to be the Son of God. That's all he did. Even Pilate was afraid. They said he was afraid. And he went back inside the palace. And then he started questioning Jesus. Like, in my spirit right now, I'm feeling like Pilate didn't want to crucify Jesus. Pilate didn't want to do that because he didn't see that Jesus had done no wrong. Where do you come from? He asked Jesus, but Jesus gave him no answer. Do you refuse to speak to me? Pilate said. Do you realize I have power either to free you or to crucify you? Jesus answered, said, you would have no power over me if I were not given to you from above. Therefore, the one who handed me over to you is guilty of a greater sin. Ooh, let's reread that. Jesus answered and said, you would have no power over me if I were not given to you from above. Therefore, the one who handed me over to you is guilty of a greater sin. I got so many revelations, but I'm not going to speak on it right now. From then on, Pilate tried to set Jesus free, but the Jewish leaders kept shouting, if you let this man go, you are not a friend of Caesar's. Anyone who claims to be a king opposes Caesar. So the problem that they had with him is that he challenged Caesar's position in leadership, which is being a king. He's saying that they were saying Jesus like saying that he was a king. He was a king, which he was the Son of God. He was a king of God. He was a king, and they didn't like that. They were so in love with Caesar and Caesar's leadership at that time, ruling or whatever you want to call it. They were so pressed about Caesar that they wanted to crucify Jesus for even speaking that he was a king, a son of God. What? When Pilate heard this, he brought Jesus out and sat him down on the judge's seat at a place known as the stone pavement, which is Aramaic is Gabbatha. So the place that the stone pavement which they took Jesus to was called Gabbatha. It was the day of preparation of Passover. It was about to be noon. So they was getting ready to crucify him at noon in Gabbatha, or on Gabbatha, which we say on Gabbatha, because that's where he was. He was on a pavement which was called Gabbatha. Here is your king, Pilate said to the Jews, but they shouted, take him away, crucify him. Should I crucify your king? Pilate asked. We have no king but Caesar, the chief of priests answered. Finally, Pilate handed him over to be crucified. So, in other words, Pilate took the side, because he was so afraid of the people, he took the side of the soldiers, basically, of the priests. Everybody was against him. Pilate didn't even see nothing wrong. And then when he said when Jesus he didn't like Jesus' answer. First of all, let me just bring that out. When Jesus had said the answer, I felt it in my spirit. He didn't like the answer. He said, you would not have power over me if it were not given to you from above. Meaning, if somebody in a higher authority over you, God, the Most High, hadn't given you power to do this to me, then you had no power. Meaning he don't serve none of them. So they didn't like the way that Jesus responded, because he didn't respond in fear or trembling or nothing like that. He responded because he knew his position, he knew his mission, he knew what he came here to do. So when you know what you know without a shadow of a doubt, there's no room for fear. So he didn't show no fear. He didn't show no, like, you got power over me, but you don't have power over me. You feel me? So they didn't like that. Pilate didn't like that. Therefore, the one who had handed me over to you is guilty of a greater sin. So Jesus, in that one verse, verse 19 and 11, is two answers that Jesus gave this man in one verse. The first was saying that only God, the Most High God, have power over him. The second answer Jesus gave to him, he was talking about the soldiers, the priests, the people who wanted Jesus crucified. He was saying, therefore the one who handed me over to you is guilty of a greater sin. Meaning the people, the soldiers who gave, that had a problem with Jesus, saying he was the Son of God, they're accused of a greater sin. And then Pilate just went on ahead and took the other people's side because he didn't like Jesus' answers. He didn't like the way Jesus stood in his power. He didn't like the things how Jesus wasn't afraid of him just because he was supposed to be this overall, this like high leader or ruler or whatever he's supposed to be. He didn't like nothing that Jesus said in that verse. He did not like it. And so you could tell he didn't like it, because he said from then on, Pilate tried to set Jesus free, but the Jewish leaders kept shouting, "If you let this man go, you are no friend of Caesar." So he feared the people and not the Most High God. You get what I'm saying? You see how the transference of spirits of energy is real? At first, Pilate didn't see nothing that this man had did. Then, as soon as he got the seeing, and got the other people got in his ear and got in his head, then the fear started to set in, and then he just gave over, knowing that Jesus was innocent, knowing Jesus didn't do anything wrong, but he still handed him over. This is how this world works. This is how people work. This is how it operates. One person have aught against you, and you could not done nothing but walked in your power, walk in your mission. This is where jealousy comes from. This is why you could be the brokest person on earth, but if you stand in your power and you know what you come here to do, and you stand for something, and you're not with the crowd, this is how they treat you. They crucify you. Jesus was a prime example of a crucifixion without a cross. He wasn't even on the cross yet, and they was already beginning the crucifixion because he did not walk with the other people. He stood in his power. He knew his mission, and his mission was going to be fulfilled. He knew what he had to do. He knew he had to die. He already knew it. So there was no room for fear. But these people feared this man so much just for him saying he's a son of God. So, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? This is crazy, because just because I say I'm the son of God, you gonna crucify, you gonna try to kill me? So if I run to say I'm the daughter of God, you gonna kill me because I say I'm the daughter of God? You got to understand, Jesus walked with power and authority. Jesus had done miracles and everything. So they wasn't just afraid of him saying it. They knew and believed that he was really truly the Son of God, and Caesar was not the true Son of God. They knew that. And they crucified him anyways. You know why? Because that evil flock with evil. You get what I'm saying? And if you're not evil yet, then you get to choose. And this is how that went. This is exactly how they went, to show you how evil men are, and how a lot of people can be persuaded just off of fear alone. Of what other people think, or what other people say, and what other people believe. It really tempers other people, and it influences other people to do what the crowd is doing. This is craziness. This is, to me, it's a theory that I had seen on I forget what it's I think it's called the flock theory, or a group theory, or something like that. Don't quote me on that, but I had seen it on Law and Order, and they had proved that this theory worked. And here again in the Bible verse, it's proven that Pilate knew Jesus had done nothing wrong, but told the truth, because people had performed miracles and done all that, and he was truly the Son of God. He had proven himself, but yet they mocked him. Yet they crowned him with the crown. Yet they picked at him. They laughed, they mocked him, and they knew he was the Son of God, because if not, they would not have crucified him. They would not have mocked him. This proves Jesus' point that they knew he was the Son of God, and they still did it. You know how evil you have to be to do something like this? You know how evil you have to be, and how cold-hearted, how you have to turn off your heart, how you have to turn off your conscience in order to crucify an innocent man who did nothing? Prime example. Jesus did nothing but say he was the Son of God and proved it. And yet people still found it out because, Caesar's is the king, and he's my only king. I don't want to accept Jesus because Caesar's my only king. And that lets you know who they were serving, who Caesar's was. You get what I'm saying? That was not of God. That was not a God ordained ruling. It wasn't from the Most High God. And you can tell because they crucified this man. You know how cold-hearted you have to be to turn your conscience off and to watch somebody do this to another human being that have done nothing, Pilate said he did not find one thing that Jesus have done. They created something out of thin air that said that Jesus was their only king. You see how people created it. Yes, I found so many discrepancies that these people did, especially these soldiers. The soldiers back in the when Jesus was sentenced to be crucified, the soldiers was the worst people right at that time. And then not only did the soldiers, this says the chief priests, the people who were supposed to be holy, the holy ones, the people that sit in high places that were supposed to be honoring God and honoring the Most High, was the very ones that crucified Jesus. These were the very people. It says the chief priests, not one. It was more than one. It has an S. It's plural. The chief priests and officials saw him and they shouted, "Crucify him! Crucify!" Really? Really? The people who were claiming to be of God said, "Crucify the man who was truly sent by God." You mean you didn't get that down on? You didn't get that memo that Jesus was coming? You didn't get that memo that God didn't give you that memo that he was sending his son? He didn't tell you about that. Yo, I can't with this. This is the prime example of why people, you have to have your own understanding, your own discernment, your own inner knowing, your own conscience. You have to be healed. This is a prime example. Because if not, you see how Pilate was easily influenced by all these people. Pilate was in a powerful position. He knew that. He said, "I can free you or I can crucify you." And he chose to crucify Jesus because he didn't like how Jesus didn't respond to his authority. So this is all about power, you guys. It was a power play. It had nothing to do with Jesus saying he was the Son of God, because he already had displayed that and proven that. It had nothing to do with him threatening Caesar's reign. It had nothing to do with that. It was all a power play. It was basically what narcissists do. How they feel like no matter what God has given them to do in missions, they're going to go against the grain and go ahead and do what they want to do and not what God say do. You get what I'm saying? And this is that's why you can have preachers in church. It's a chief priest. That's why you can have people on the front line and treat you wrong. That's why you can have people in business and high places and still treat you wrong, because they do not have the vision. They are not sent by God. They do not have love in them. They do not have God. God said, "I am love." So if you don't have any love in you, how are you supposed to recognize that Jesus was the Son of God? You're not going to even care that Jesus is the Son of God because you have no love with you. You have no God. So the God in you cannot recognize the God in Jesus. So this is the reason why they could do it, you guys. They had no love in them. They had no God. And the little bit of consciousness that Pilate had in him died when he crucified Jesus. It died. He killed it. It was gone. His light was completely shut off there. That was a sad fall for Pilate when he did that. That was sad, because you understand his heart had to be hardened at that time, and he had to dim his conscience. You get what I'm saying? He had to do all of that in order, in this split second. He could have been stood up for Jesus and said, "No, this man is the Son of God. Look at all the miracles he performed. Look at what he did. Look at this and that." And they had already seen that. And yet they still did not cry because they had no love with him. That's why people can do the evil things to other people and continue to do it, because they have no God within them. They said we're all the children of God, but we were. But some of them choose to turn off their God in them, and they pray to the most low. I hate to say it. They only like the lowest of things. That's what it is. Yet I got all these riches and stuff, but they're not rich in spirit. They're not rich in self. They're not rich in people. They're not rich in consciousness. They're not rich in love. They're only rich in the most lowest thing of the Lord. If you tell them that, hey, this prostitute was sent from God and she came to spread love and start fornicating with all of them, they would have believed that. They would have took that and ate that up, and everybody would have had their turn with her, and that would have been it, or him. Men can be prostitute either way. Take how you want to take it, but they would have had no problem with that, because that's the things that they love. And it was the God in this scripture was showing you how you could be easily, how people that have very low consciousness can be easily influenced by the crowd of people. How people with this narcissistic personality type or with this power complex can take everything that God have said and dismiss it and only want what they want, what their ego wants. And that's the trick of the most low. That's how the most low tricked them. That's how he tricks them. Because he makes them think that they're God, but when God is God, God always gonna reign. Okay? Now I'm gonna leave it off with that right there, you guys. Because I'm not gonna get too deep in this. It's not too much for me to be a Bible. I'm not really. I love the Bible. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not really a Bible person per se. I was raised in church, so I do have a background in Christianity. But I was just led to go to go there, to go read that scripture and talk about the crown of thorns. And this is why it's so important for you to be healed, for you to have your own discernment, your own intuition, and for you to be an individual. You can hang with people and still not let them influence you to do bad things. But a lot of people ain't strong enough to do that. Clear example: Pilate was in a position where he could have not crucified Jesus and say, "Hey, this man say he's the Son of God. Why don't y'all believe him?" He could have easily took that route, but they say he got afraid. That fear that's the most low. When you're fearful like that, that's the most low. And then you go, not only was he fearful, because I be fearful sometimes, but that fueled me to go ahead and be brave. They're gonna crucify they're gonna crucify me for doing right. I'd rather be crucified for doing right than doing wrong. But Pilate took the low step. He took the low road. You get what I'm saying? And he went with the crowd. And most of the time when you with the crowd going the wrong way. They just is. They're going the wrong way. And clearly, the crowd was leading Pilate in the wrong way. Where it was time for Pilate to be a leader, he did not step up and be a leader. He stepped up and he was a follower. He followed the crowd. Even though he was in a leadership position, he followed the crowd. The crowd ain't going to never ever lead you to where you need to go, especially when you're a leader, especially when you're supposed to be taking a stance or something. The crowd is not going to lead you where you need to go. That's why people look at me like I'm in a place right now where I can easily follow the crowd, but it's in my nature not to, because I'm a natural born leader. It's not for me because I'm better than anybody. It's because I know within that crowd, when it's a crowd of people, it's a lot of devilish and a lot of influences, and it's not going to be positive. It's just not gossip, slander, it's going to be a lot of that going on. So when you see people hanging with a bunch of people, you might want to... Me, I make my entrance. I'm nice to everybody, but you will see me quickly like... detour. I would go and they'll be like, dang, she be by herself. I really do. I like being by myself. I like hearing from God, and I like being influenced by the Most High God and not by the Most Low, because the Most Low use crowds of people. The Most High use individuals. So that being said, peace. I'm out, y'all.